Thank you, Derek and Chelsea. And that is indeed our charge, to stand in the light and be seen as we are, dearly beloved. That's who we are, no matter what is going on in our lives. And so, good morning, Seal Beach. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning. I can't begin to tell you how special it is for me to be here, especially back in California. For some reason. So I've visited California off and on for some 30 years, going to various conferences and workshops and different types of training, and even enjoying some of the touristy things and taking a ride down the whatever river it is up in Santa Rosa, visiting wineries and all that good stuff. But there's something really special about California, and especially this area. You see, the science of mind has been practiced in this area for over 100 years. And what that means to me every time that I come here is that I am standing on sacred ground. That there is a consciousness that has been developed here over the years that has impacted the world beyond anything that we know. And if we paid attention, we've seen how New Thought has expanded in all of its iterations. I mean, it's so familiar with most of the world in terms of the law of attraction, even at that level. I mean, people have heard of it before. And I think it's really part of the reason why there is a flotilla of container ships out here. Am I pointing in the right direction? Yes, a container, all the container ships. What's happening is that is a demonstration. Lots of finger pointing about why things are stuck out there. We are actually in the in-between, right? Because we've demonstrated all this shipload of stuff. Right. We love our stuff, and yet it's not in our hands yet. This is a manifestation of the use of the creative process in the individual, right? That's where it all came from. So what do you do when you have done a spiritual mind treatment or set an intention and you don't have the demonstration yet? What do you do in the in-between? Because that's critical about what comes next, right? So the keyboard on my laptop died a few weeks ago, actually longer, and I knew I was coming here and I needed to have my laptop, PC laptop here. And so I brought it to my guy, and he said, well, we're going to have to order it from the only place on the planet that has it, which, of course, is China. So I said, go ahead. And, nothing was happening. I called after 10 days and still no word. And so finally he called me back up and said, well, here's the problem. I tracked it, and they said that it takes 30 to 40 days for it to get here. So my laptop is out there somewhere. The keyboard's out there. And I realized that my intention to fix my computer was really an unconscious use of the creative process. I didn't really think about it, right? It was just something on my to-do list that I just checked off and wanted to move on to the next thing. And you might say, Reverend John, that's pretty harsh. We all do that all the time, right? We just make our to-do list, check things off, and go on to the next thing. And I realized that in some ways that's really unconscious behavior. Maybe it's semi-conscious, but it's seldom as conscious as it could be, right? The truth is, though, that what's more important than it being that the intention was unconscious is, what do I do in the in-between while I'm waiting for that component? How do I behave in the in-between. So I could rant and finger point at all the things that are wrong with the supply chain, right? And I could complain that all of my valuable files about being an interim minister are on that computer, and I don't have my hands on them. And those are choices that we could always make. But the reality is that I saw an opportunity. I saw that, reflecting on my life, because I'm getting up in age, that there were things that I had done in my youth 50 years ago that I was no longer doing. Among them, drawing and writing poetry, journaling. I wasn't doing those things to the extent that I was in my youth. And I remembered it filled me up with a lot of passion to be doing those things. And so I reconsidered, what do I do in the in-between? Can I resurrect some of those passions from my youth? And I realized, and this may be funny to some of you that already have an Apple product, but I've been a PC guy for my entire life. And I recognized that an iPad could solve a lot of these problems. Now, I've only had it a week. So I'm learning that it's easier to say than to do. But I'm really looking forward to using the Procreate program to do drawing and artwork. It's a place where I can have one place to take all of my notes, and it will translate my scribble into text. And I'm sure that Microsoft has a program that could do that, but I don't think it's quite as elegant, at least the promise of an iPad. And so it was a moment of growth for me as I looked into the in-between and recognized that there's more here than meets the eye, that it doesn't serve me to complain about what wasn't working. Now, to top it off, I met with John Broderick yesterday, and he set me up with a PC laptop that the center wasn't using. And so now I can have the comfort of a PC and access my files that are on OneDrive. And so it gave me great comfort. What a demonstration, right? I got everything that I asked for because I was in a place of opening my heart to this promise of the universe that all is added if we're open and receptive to it. Now, the container ships that are out there are a demonstration of the unconscious use of the creative process. And as many have experienced, such a use can have unintended consequences, right? Have we ever seen that in our own lives? You want to make God laugh, tell her your plans, right? Be careful what you ask for, you might just get it. Well, when we look at what's going on there, it's not just a shortage of truckers. There's been a shortage of truckers for over 10 years. It's that there's a churn in the trucking business, that people cannot make a living doing trucking. In my hotel, they cannot do the maid service every day because of shortage of labor, and so you have to make arrangements to have someone come in to clean your room. The restaurant industry right now is seeing a shortage of workers, for a variety of reasons. They can't make ends meet. The hotel industry is suffering. We have what is being called the Great Resignation, because what we have manifest is a systemic cultural dysfunction. So those are some of the unintended side effects of the blatant use of the law of attraction in an unconscious manner. Is that making sense? Sure. And so, the reality is we're only human. This is the human experience. It's natural. It's part of what calls us forward into a greater reality. All of the systemic issues that we're recognizing were ignored up until this pandemic. And as awful as the pandemic is, that is a bright light that is shining on this dysfunction that somehow has to be resolved. Now, William Blake in the 17th century said, "The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom." The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom. And here we are. We're stepping into the recognition that to get to that palace, something has to change. We're all just trying to figure it out. And as painful as it can be, Rumi reminds us that how will the mirror ever be polished if we're irritated by every rub? You see, that takes us deeper into what we really need to know. All of this stuff that's going on really is a reflection on what's going on in our own lives. And if we're irritated by every rub that is going on, where are we putting our attention in this in-between? On everything that's not working or something better, something different? This yearning that we have for all this stuff that's out there is really a yearning for a deeper connection to spirit. And even as we may be conscious of it here, we still have unconscious behavior sometimes. And so we may wonder, well, what do we do? Part of that solution is in feeling grace in the in-between. That's the title of my talk today, is feeling grace in the in-between. What do we do in that in-between? And that's part of the deeper part of the evolution of consciousness. That is where we need to go. So recently I visited my son in Portland. And he took us, Portland is a foodie town. I don't know if you really know that. I mean, there are restaurants everywhere, and they all have the outdoor seating. So everywhere you go in Portland, you just see down every street all of these, outbuildings set up so everybody can eat outside. And it was really fascinating to see that aspect of Portland that I knew nothing about. But he also took us to the Rose Garden, and he took us to the Portland Japanese Garden. I have to tell you, I was breathless. The Portland Japanese Garden is one of the most beautiful things that you can ever experience. They have 500-year-old bonsai there. And it seems that every vista that you turned just took your breath away. And I was just blown away. This is an example of the grace that is around us all the time. And it's always there to the extent that we are receptive to it. Can we really move into that place? So I have a quote from Annie Dillard. Anyone familiar with Annie Dillard? She wrote Pilgrim at Tinker's Creek, which is probably my favorite book of all time. And she won a Pulitzer Prize for that book. But I want to read this to you, and it's a little long, but it really struck me as a mystical experience. So here goes. I hope I can get through it. When her doctor took her bandages off and led her into the garden, the girl who was no longer blind saw the tree with the lights in it. It was for this tree I searched through the peach orchards of summer, in the forests of fall and winter and spring for years. Then one day, I was walking along Tinker Creek and thinking of nothing at all, and I saw the tree with the lights in it. I saw the backyard cedar where the mourning doves roost, charged and transfigured, each cell buzzing with flame. I stood on the grass with the lights in it, grass that was holy fire, utterly focused and utterly dreamed. It was less like seeing than like being for the first time seen, knocked breathless by a powerful glance. The flood of fire abated, but I'm still spending the power. Gradually, the lights went out in the cedar, the colors died, the cells unflamed and disappeared. I was still ringing. I had been my whole life a bell and never knew it until that moment I was lifted and struck. I have since only very rarely seen the tree with the lights in it. The vision comes and goes, and mostly goes, but I live for it. For the moment, the mountains open, and a new light roars in spate through the crack, and the mountains slam. That is a mystical experience. That is what we are craving with all those container ships out there, is that kind of connection to the grace and beauty that we are immersed in, but sometimes are so blind to it. Attica Luckett, in her song, says, if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. If you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. And I'm here to tell you, that's where the juice is, in the in-between. As we go about our busy lives, that's where the stuff is. That's what will make us fulfilled. So 100 years ago, Thomas Troward, in The Creative Process in the Individual, tells us that in order to demonstrate, let go of the thing that you're trying to demonstrate and instead focus on the 7 aspects of God: life, light, love, peace, power, beauty, joy. Life, light, love, peace, power, beauty, joy. Life, light, love, peace, power, beauty, joy. And as we bring our attention through meditation and contemplation of those 7 aspects of God, all else is added. You see, this community is grounded in the science of mind, and I challenge you to step it up to the next level. Step it up into the in-between of feeling the grace and the beauty that is already all around us. So the opportunity before us is this: I am the in-between minister. Right? That's what interim means. It's in between. So I am here to shepherd us through this transition, to see the beauty and the talent that is already here in this community, and to go deeper, to recognize the possibilities of what can be. You see, we can do and the selection committee will do their due diligence, tick all the boxes that are required by CSL, and vetting the person to make sure they have the credentials that are needed for a community. But the challenge is that we have to go deeper. What we need to do, if I asked everyone here what they think a minister should be, there would be as many opinions of that as there are people here. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I challenge you with the fact that if indeed you want that, then you have to become it. You have to become cooperative components of what you see this minister should be: more compassionate, articulate, charismatic. Well, how can you become a cooperative component of those things? Because as the community rallies around what they are wanting, then it is demonstrated. And so if we want to move into that place, it's a place of grace and beauty. So that's our challenge. I'm here to support that in any way that I can. We have the talent, we have the skill, we have this beautiful building, this jewel by the sea, this community. The next step is to step into a greater reality of the grace that is already within us. So the question is, the universe is always unfolding this grace before us. It's its nature to do so. And the question is, are you willing to receive? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Can I hear it again?
Yes.
And there you have it. So let me end with a quote by Ernest Holmes. And this is what he says: Such is the power of right thinking that it cancels and erases everything unlike itself. It answers every question, solves all problems, is the solution to every difficulty. It is like the sunlight of eternal truth bursting through the clouds of obscurity and bathing all life in a celestial glory. It is the absolute with which we are dealing, and nothing less. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you.